A historic fight is about to go down between Charle do Bronx Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. And this is the most anticipated fight of this year. And for me personally, my most anticipated fight ever since I watched the sport. Before it was Khabib Tony, but that ship sailed a very long time ago. And I had Usman, Covington too, and all the other fights, but this is Charles versus Islam in lightweight, the best weight class in the world. And I genuinely believe Charles and Islam, a little bit of a hot take, but those guys are number 1 and number 2 pound for pound fighters in the world. I think they're the best. So we're literally having the best fighters in the world fight each other. Like pound for pound. I'm not talking about just weight classes, like pound for pound. So about this fight, I was fence sitting a little bit, a little while ago, but I was always mainly going for Charles. But sometimes I was considering an Islam pick. But after looking at all the data and all the research I've been doing, I've been studying this fight for the past 3 weeks. Obviously when the fight got booked, I was thinking about it, but in my mind I was like, man, Charles got this. But then every week we get closer, I'm like, holy shit, Islam could win, and it's a 50-50 fight, and I had to look more into it. So after looking into it, looking at the strengths of Islam, one of his strengths is obviously his strength, physical strength. You saw the submission he got on Drew Dober, where he literally just had shoulder pressure on Drew Dober in half guard and just squeezed his back, firing. You can see all his muscle fibers in his back just firing off and just forced the tap out of Drew Dober. It's crazy. Islam obviously has really good wrestling and defense on the feet. Well, defense on the feet because he doesn't open himself up and he doesn't commit to any offense. So that's actually not really a strength. That's more like a neutral. Maybe it would be good for him fighting Charles because he doesn't want to open up and get caught. But, technically, and his tactics that he used for his defense it's not that deep. We've seen better from Dustin. Dustin is obviously a high-level striker. But the only thing Islam does, I really see, is just that, he doesn't leave himself open because he's not throwing any offense. But he usually just moves away from your strikes. Just a basic retreat from your strikes. And then he will pop right back in and keep that high guard. Charles' strength is obviously going to be his striking. I think he's the better striker, more defensively sound when he's on the offense, when he's throwing his strikes. He's more powerful, has a much better variety of attack. Same for Islam. Islam throws way more kicks out there and much more cleaner kicks than Khabib. Khabib's kicks were incredibly sloppy, but Islam's more reserved, and it's going to be really hard for him to throw kicks on the back foot. So Charles is obviously the better striker. Charles has the better jiu-jitsu, and Charles, I think he is more durable than Islam Makhachev. But I also forgot to mention, for Islam's strength, is that he could have a better gas tank. But I feel like some people are underrating Charles' gas tank too, because he fights in really high-paced fights, and he isn't gassing out or he can't do anything. He still had a lot of strength in that third round against Poirier. Still had a lot of strength to finish that submission against Kevin Lee too. He still can do it. And obviously when he drives up the pace and in these high-paced fights, he's dragging his opponent with him in that. Dustin Poirier is obviously a 5-round fighter. We've known him for having good cardio, and the body work and just the pace that Oliveira put on him was insane. But I want to talk about their recent performances a little bit. Charles, he's been doing really good, and I already said high-paced fights and putting people out, very dangerous. Islam Makhachev, he dusted Bobby Green and he dusted Dan Hooker in and out in the first round. He looked really dominant in those fights, and I think that's why a lot of people think or are siding with Islam. But that Moises fight is a really, it makes me really optimistic for choosing Charles Oliveira. And the main reason is because Moises was able to do things that I think Oliveira could do, but better. And yeah, I think the things that Moises did sometimes in that fight is a key to beating Islam, or to at least neutralize and give yourself, make the grappling fight a little bit more fair and level. And if his level for Charles Oliveira, Islam is toasted on the feet. So the thing I saw from the Moises fight was Moises being able to turn Islam Makhachev off the fence. I've seen other people do this too, I think Nick Lentz and I think Davey Ramos too, just turning Islam off the fence. It's just a simple, just turning people off the fence. And Moises is small and he's not that good of a wrestler. And Moises was able to pick up Islam Makhachev and dump him on the ground, get a nice takedown on him. And also this big habit from Islam that we saw in the Moises fight and in the Arman's fight was that he gives up his back when he gets up. You know how we rarely see Islam like on bottom position? Dude gives up his back like a traditional wrestler. And that's a really big no-no, especially when you're fighting Charles Oliveira. Charles just finished his last two opponents on their backs, whether it was on the ground or it was standing or mid-transition or he forced the transition on them. The back is, you don't give up your back to Charles Oliveira. Also, the other thing I noticed is obviously like just Islam hasn't been hurt, so his composure is not on the level of Charles. Like we've seen Charles's composure. Like, he doesn't change. Like, same with Volkanovski, same with Usman. These are why these guys are so good. Just their composure. Like, when they get hurt or when they get dropped, they get back up and they just keep going. Like, their confidence is still there. The game plan is still in their mind most of the time. And, yeah, they're just still there. And the recovery is good, obviously. So, yeah. But for Islam, we haven't really seen that. Like, the last time that happened, the last time he got hurt was in the Davy Ramos fight when he got dropped with the jab. But it was like a jab. So he was able to recover quickly from that too. And the other time he got knocked out. And that's it. So yeah, if things start going dicey for Islam, there could be a chance that inexperience of coming back, getting that comeback victory is going to be a huge problem for him. And especially when you're fighting Charles, Charles is most likely going to give you a lot of adversity because he's dangerous on the ground and on the feet. So something else I noticed from the Moises fight was the use of leg locks, and he only used it once in the third round. But I think that's what Charles should do. I mean, that's what Charles always does. So I believe in the ground game of Charles Oliveira when it comes to like getting up and disengaging or getting a submission too, possibly. But I don't think so. But Charles is really good at, the activity from bottom is really good. Like, I know people who pick Islam, they always bring up the Kevin Lee fight. But that first round, Oliveira was doing a lot of work and keeping Kevin Lee busy. And there's so many times that Charles Oliveira could have got up, but I think he really saw like a submission opportunity came or open, and he went for it like so many times. And he really tried to submit Kevin Lee, but usually he would get up. Like we've seen in his previous fights, he would use the submissions to get up. And I think that's what he should do against Islam. I don't think he should stick around like how he did against Kevin Lee. But Kevin Lee is really good at jiu-jitsu, and I think he has a much better jiu-jitsu understanding than Islam, because I'm gonna be honest, like he kind of looked lost. Islam looked lost when Moises was on his legs in that third round, the ending of the third round. He was looking at his corner, and I think he was asking for like advice, and he was stuck in that position. Obviously, Islam could get better, but the pace that Charles goes on the ground is insane, and the amount of submissions that he can chain, like he has like a lot. Like he probably knows like every single leg submission out there, and he can chain them, change the looks, and change the responses that Islam has to use. And I can see him getting up from bottom too if he keeps Islam in his guard. Because like I've seen him using his leg locks, switching it from a arm bar. Like his arm bar is good too, but his arm bar actually opens up his opportunity to go for a triangle, and that triangle opens an opportunity for him to get up, to get feet on hips, get his feet on, or just kicking Islam's chest out so he can get up. Dude, there's people underrate the ground game of Charles Oliveira. Like, obviously, Islam, he's going to have to try to close the space, but if Charles is able to keep him in his guard, I think that'll be a huge success for Charles Oliveira. On the feet, we've talked about Islam's defense and just his style on the feet, reserved. And, he just moves back in a straight line. And against the cage, when he pins himself against the cage, it's really easy for Oliveira to just glue him there, because we've seen in all of Oliveira's fights, he's really good at like heading off the opponent, tracking them down, mirroring them. When I meant by heading off, like, trapping them with like elite. Like if how Kevin Lee moved to Charles's left side, he'll come in with a leaping hook, trap him with the hook. If Kevin Lee went to his right, head kick or a right hook, it's like some Conor McGregor stuff, okay? But the problem I see for Charles, the only problem is if he overextends himself and Islam is able to get into the clinch, deep in the clinch. I believe Charles can hold his own in the clinch. Obviously, he can turn Islam off the fence. But for Islam's sake, Islam wants to get in the clinch and just close the space on the clinch and get those trips or get those body locks. And you know what I've always seen from these European, like, fuck, I don't know what to call it, like just Dagestani, because I seen Shavkat do this a lot too, especially against the fence. They always have like 3 options against the fence. They either put their lead knee or lead leg in between of their opponent's like legs and go for that basic lift and slam, or they'll go for the trip, or they'll go for the trip in the back. So they have like a good system of, you know, body lock trips and stuff like that, clinch trips. So that's what Islam's gonna have to be looking for. And obviously when he gets Charles to the ground, he's gonna have to get in a good pin position, like, you know, half guard, get that shoulder pressure, or side control, or obviously mount, like just anywhere but the guard, and just control Charles there and just hold him down. So yeah, that's the only problem I see for Charles Oliveira. It's just that he could overextend himself, give Islam a takedown, and if Islam goes for a trip, most likely he could land outside of the guard. I know Oliveira can recover from half guard, but, you know, like Islam's top pressure, especially in those pinning positions, it's going to be hard to get out of there. But I still believe Charles could scramble out of there or transition out of there. He's not like some fish out of water. You know, he's not like Drew Dober, Dan Hooker, Bobby Green. Like he knows how to fight off his back, because everyone always brings up that when we watched that Kevin Lee fight in that second round when Lee was just in half guard, he really wasn't doing anything. But that could be a good game plan for Islam to just keep doing that for multiple rounds, obviously, and possibly get the decision. But, you know, each fight starts standing. And for him to get those takedowns later on, I feel like Charles could make the adjustment. And, you know, if Islam has to shoot from a distance, especially for those doubles or the singles, he's gonna get guillotine possibly. Like his style of grappling, and I really like his defensive grappling, is like he's good. Like when you're trying to get a takedown on him, it's dangerous, and when you're on the ground with him, it's dangerous. Or he's very active. Like he's just good in those positions, going down and the guard and just getting up, kind of like Dariush, you know, Diego Ferreira, like a little bit of like Chito Vera. Really good active guard players, you know. Also, I'm very confident if Charles gets on top, he would just dominate Islam on the ground too. Like his patience on top position, you know, in Dustin Poirier's guard, when he had Gaethje in a mounted triangle, Ferguson on top position in general, when Ferguson had a butterfly half guard into top mount. You know, his transitions are really, really nice. And, you know, you couldn't pass Dustin Poirier's guard, but Poirier was just holding on for dear life. And I like the damage that Charles creates from top position. He's constantly looking for damage. He's doing damage to Ferguson, and that opened up a submission for him, because Ferguson was baited into defending the strikes by framing off the strikes of Charles Oliveira, which exposed Tony Ferguson's arm and got him almost submitted, like in a submission state. But, you know, Tony was just too tough. Dustin Poirier was just eating elbows the entire round, so I guess he chose to do that and almost got 10-8'd. And then Justin Gaethje got baited into getting up, exposing his back like how Islam gets up, and he got choked out. So my prediction for this fight is going to be a Charles Oliveira first round knockout. Because I believe he's going to do it, because he said he's going to go for the knockout, okay? I mean, he could go for the submission. It's honestly like 50-50 how he's going to finish Islam. I'm just hoping that Charles fights smart. And this is how I think he should fight. He should stay long, you know, use his long weapons. But keep the pressure. He needs to keep the pressure, because, you know, the power is there, and he could eventually find a shot when he just keeps throwing a lot of shots. But I don't want him to leap in with left hooks. I think if he does literally anything else but leap in with left hooks, he'll be fine. Like, I trust him throwing his elbows, you know, his teeps, because even if Islam tries to catch his kicks and go for a takedown off of those, he could get submitted, okay? Especially going for those traditional, like, especially level changing, going down for like a regular takedown. I think he could get submitted there. The best takedowns for Islam is the body trips or the clinch takedowns, and for him to get in a good position and just hold Charles Oliveira down. Charles Oliveira, do whatever you want to him on the feet, and, you know, keep your distance, land those power shots, because this is an orthodox versus southpaw matchup, so the power hand is going to be a huge factor in this. And just, you know, do your usual, Charles, or I hope he does. Just glue Makhachev to the fence like how you did Kevin Lee, and just batter him, just destroy him. Please, I'm rooting for Oliveira. I hope it's a good fight. And yeah, man, I can't wait for this. Can't wait for this fight. So yeah, that's my prediction. Charles Oliveira, first round knockout. It could be a submission. I could see it happening, but Oliveira said he's going to go for the knockout, so I trust him. And if he doesn't and he goes for the submission, I don't even care. I'm still happy anyways, as long as he wins. But yeah, that's my prediction for this fight. Charles Oliveira, first round knockout. For Islam does have a good chance, but I think Islam will win this by decision, like a 49-46 or 48-47. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys are watching, whoever made it to the end, thank you guys. Thank you. And yeah, the rest of my picks are coming out very soon, so stay tuned for that. Okay, I'm gonna go over all the good fights, like Bilal versus Brady, Gamrot Dariush, TJ Aljo, and Yan O'Malley. Peace.